Hello and welcome to the All Things Horror podcast with me, Amazon best-selling horror author and horror fanatic, Rick Wood, where me and my guests discuss all things horror. Coming up on today's show.
Return of the Dead is the first movie to coin the phrase brains. All the vampires were skinny bald guys. Are you telling me you can't find a skinny bald guy? He's got blue skin, yellow eyes. He's the traditional Nosferatu type vampire.
Hello and welcome to Rick Wood's All Things Horror podcast with me, Rick Wood, and a very warm welcome to all of you to episode 3 of my brand new podcast. Today it is Friday the 2nd of November. I just need to check my diary there, which means it's exactly 1 week since After the Devil Has Won, my post-apocalyptic horror novel, has been released. Thank you so much for your response so well. I worked so hard on that book, and it's great when you get such wonderful feedback on it. So today, in today's podcast, I'm interviewing Steven Jenkins, a author of firstly a zombie novel, Burn the Dead, and then going on from that, he wrote some ghost novels and vampire dystopian novels. And I travelled all the way down to the bottom of South Wales, meeting lots of traffic on the way in order to interview him. But I'm glad I did, because it was a lovely interview. It's great to meet Steven. He's a great guy. So, without further ado, here it is, part 1 of my interview with Steven Jenkins. So, hello, here I am in South Wales with Steven Jenkins. Hello, Steven.
Hello, how's it going, Rick?
It's good. I'm well. How are you?
Not too bad at all.
So we're here to talk about horror and your books.
Okay.
Most notable one is Burn the Dead.
Yes, that's one of my more popular ones.
Cool. Can you tell us a bit about it? Tell us a bit about what the book's about, how it kind of came about.
It came about. It started life as a short story. I'd written a book, my first novel called 14 Days, and I was sort of banging my head against the wall. Couldn't get it published. I'd lots and lots of rejections, and I was sort of going to give up on writing, but I thought maybe I should start writing short stories, because I had no body of work other than this novel I'd written. So I came up with this story called Burn the Dead. Unlike my other stories, the title Burn the Dead came before the story. It just popped in my head one day, Burn the Dead, a nice ring to it, and it sort of wrote itself, really. You know, a guy who burns zombies for a living. I won't say any more than that, because I don't spoil the twist.
You don't want to give away what happens. It's the first of a series, isn't it?
Yes.
So, did you plan the series straight from the beginning, or was the series something that came about afterwards?
No, I wrote the short story. I sent it off to a few competitions and a magazine, and it got published in Horror Digest in America, and that sort of spurred me on then to realise that maybe I should stick with this writing. Then it came up runner-up in a competition, and a lot of feedback from friends, family, that they sort of one of their favourite ones. So I developed into a full book. I sent it off to be published, and I had 6 publishers interested in it. Wow. One of which was a publisher called Black Bedsheet Books. And being an unpublished writer at the time, I bit their hand off. And then at roughly the same time, I had my first book that was not getting anywhere, 14 Days. Somebody wanted to publish that. So there's a lot about Burn the Dead that sort of paved the way for it right now. But as a series, it was meant to be a standalone book. And I did have an idea to develop the story, but I wanted to see how well Burn the Dead 1 did. It wasn't so much like it was desperate for a sequel, but I had a good idea for a sequel. And then I had an idea for a third one, and I left it at that then. Was it a book that then took off straight away, or were there a few frustrating moments? When I was writing, or when it was
published?
To be honest, it was one of my easiest books I've written, because it felt like a film that I'd always wanted to see. Like as much as I love writing, love reading, I'm probably a movie fan predominantly because of my growing up in the 80s with horrors and things like that. And a lot of my stories come as as a film ideas. They sort of convert into books and they develop them. But it was, it felt like in my head, I imagined it like a mini-series or a film, and it felt exactly the type of thing that I would have watched, as a
That's
kid.
exactly what you mean. When I wrote The Sensitives, I did it thinking, there isn't a book out there that I want to read, so I'm going to write it.
Yeah, and I love zombies. There's something about a zombie that I'm when it comes to writing and reading or movies, I like horror that is not completely supernatural, more on the realms of possibility. I'm not saying zombies are ever going to happen, but I like when you throw science into the mix, where you can't really argue with a virus or things like that. Yes, you're never going to have a dead body walking around.
Saying that, I watched a YouTube video a little while ago that talks about, I think, 7 ways the zombie plague could happen, about people being kind of regenerated. So it could well happen.
Yeah, possibly. I think more 28 days later, sort of zombie, the virus. But there was a lot about Burn the Dead that I loved. I think it could have been the type of series I could have gone on and on and on. But I've got so many different ideas. I've had a lot of my readers asking about Burn the Dead 4.
Yeah.
And it's not that I wouldn't want to write it. I even got a few ideas for further ones. It's just I've got so many other ideas that I'll never get around to them unless I put things on hold. I'm probably the same with yours.
How do you decide which idea to do then when you've got so many ideas?
Well, that is a problem. When I first started, it was just like my favourite one, but then it would take so long to get a book out that my favourite one might have been outshone then by a new idea, which I thought was better, but maybe I've just got bored of my old idea. So I tend to put them in order now, just to sort of splinter the type of books I write. So I wouldn't want to write a zombie series and then move on to another zombie series. I'd probably want to do a ghost one after that, then maybe a vampire, then move back to zombies. Yeah. Because I've probably got fans of zombies, my readers, some of them like zombies, some of them like ghosts. So to just keep on putting out zombie ones, they're going to take too long.
Do you find the kind of... Because when I wrote a ghost series and I wrote a zombie series, and I was quite surprised by quite a few fans of the ghost series weren't as interested in the zombies as I thought they would be. Have you found there is kind of like a big crossover in the audiences? Or
Yes, very much. As a fan of pretty much all horror, I assumed that people just liked all horror until I started writing, and people they feel like ghosts. When I wrote a ghost book, even though a lot of people liked the ghost book, my zombie fans almost felt as if I'd just written a romantic comedy. They're worlds apart, even though they're in the same sort of world.
I kind of assume as someone who loves all horror and can't get enough of horror that everyone else who loves horror kind of loves as much.
Yeah, and I thought, when I first started writing, because I had so many different ideas, I thought, I'll just be like Stephen King. I'll put a different genre, a different type of genre, everyone. And I realised, no, I'm not Stephen King. I need to put series out because fans like a series, fans like characters. But I don't think I could continue as a writer if I couldn't write lots of different horror genres. I would get bored, and I think my writing would suffer. I need, like when I wrote the 3 Burn the Dead books, as much as I love it, as much as I love them, I thought I need a little bit of a break from zombies. And I haven't written a zombie book for a year or two, and I can't wait for my next series. I need that little break,
How long has it been then since Burn the Dead was released?
Burn the Dead 1 came out, I wrote it in 2012, probably got released 2013, but the Burn the Dead 3 was released in 2015. So it's been a while.
It's stuck pretty well for being out in 2013.
It has. I remember when I wrote Burn the Dead 3, I felt it was the first time I think it was in my 5th book by then. I'd written a few shorter books. It was the first time I felt like I was a fraud. I didn't have writer's block as in
imposter syndrome.
I was, sorry?
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And I didn't have writer's block as ideas. The book was mapped out, everything, the twist, everything. But I was just thinking, oh my God, I've been faking it and I'm not a writer and I should quit. All these things popped in my head, and I had a chat with my editor, funny enough, and I said, I don't want to do, should I leave the book for a month and come back to it, and maybe I'll feel better? And then she said, no, just get it done, and then worry about it later. And I did that, and you know what? Burn the Dead 3 is probably my favourite book I've written. Even though it might not be the most significant compared to the first one, it's the most movie-like book I've written. If I were to adapt it into a screenplay, I don't think I'd have to change a lot. I'd have to dramatically change a lot of things with Burn the Dead 1 and 2, because some of the things won't work on TV. But with Burn the Dead 3, it could be literally almost frame for frame transferred onto the small or big screen, and I think that's what I like about it. It does make the book a little bit shorter because it's a lot faster paced. But we live in a digital age now, it doesn't really matter anymore.
I found out my books are generally 40 to 50,000 words, and I couldn't make it any longer just because I see it as a horror movie in my mind, and it's just images.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar.
Well, I think when I was first trying to get my books published, a lot of publishers had a minimum of 70,000 words. Yeah. So you're tending to sort of add more, fluffing it up a little bit, and now that doesn't matter so much because more people read ebooks. Yeah. I figured, well, it doesn't really matter as long as the book is good. You know, it doesn't really matter. Who cares?
Absolutely. Right. Your horror profile.
Okay.
We'll start with your horror profile. So, we're going to start with your favourite horror movie.
Right. I have had to think of this, and I got to say, Exorcist is the best horror movie ever made. If an alien came down to Earth and asked to see the best horror film, I'd have to say Exorcist. But my personal favourite is Return of the Living Dead. It's a 1985 movie. It's a very special movie. I don't know whether it might be a little bit lost on a younger person. I think maybe you had to be around in the 80s to truly appreciate it. But it was the first ever zombie movie to have running zombies. Yes. People think it's 28 Days Later, and it's not, it's that. Yeah. And what makes it even better is these zombies are from the ground, old school Michael Jackson's Thriller, coming out of the dirt, and they still can sprint. I don't know how that, I know.
I mean, you watch Night of the Living Dead, which is George Romero's black and white classic, very good, but they're not that scary because you could easily outrun them if they can run. Yeah,
but that's what's brilliant about Return of the Living Dead is the first movie to coin the phrase brains. Now, now that doesn't exist in any film other than that film, and people use that term in The Simpsons, in lots of things, and it only exists in that film, and it's brilliant. It's got some of the best. It's the 80s. The 80s was the birth of fantastic makeup effects and prosthetics
and grainy pictures, and kind of a trashy storylines.
There was so much crap about in the 80s.
But it's good crap, isn't it? Best horror movies are the ones that get 2 stars and are rubbish.
It's a funny old world. You have some of the worst pieces of crap on screen, and in the same decade, Predator was out with some of the best sort of effects and everything. It was a strange decade. But that's my favourite.
So why would you say The Exorcist is the best then? It's not your favourite. What makes that the best?
What makes it the best is the foreboding. Putting aside the iconic nature of the film, the plot and everything, it's the slow burner of it. That's probably why it's not my favourite, because it is slow. I just sort of appreciate it. It doesn't mean I want to watch it multiple times. I think that's where I gauge my favourite, how many times I'm willing to watch it. But what I love about The Exorcist, you can't, like in a horror film, if there's a strange noise in the woods and you scream at the screen, or why would you go investigate the strange noise? Why would you do that? Or why would you go down the cellar? Whereas if it's your daughter in a room and she's screaming and making horrible monstrous noises, you've got to go and tend to her. There's no running away. There's no calling for help. You've got to face it every time. So I mean, I got 2 daughters, and there's nothing you wouldn't do to help them. And I've loved that film before I had children. But it's the thought of, you have to deal with them, and you can't run away, can't do anything, can't kill them, can't kill the monster. It's your daughter, it's fantastic.
Obviously I grew up with The Exorcist, absolutely loving it. My girlfriend never seen it, and I made her watch it for the first time. And she was sat an hour through going, this is so boring. We're watching this. I was having to say, wait.
Yeah.
Just wait, it's coming.
That's exactly why. I think what's great, what I love about it as well, is that it's slow because you need to see the contrast between how sweet Regan is and how horrible, right? And also the contrast between how powerful a movie star the mother is in the movie and how beautiful she is, and you see her decline as the stress hits her, you know. But that needs to be done slow, and that's why it's not something you can watch every Sunday with your friends.
Absolutely.
It's once every few years maybe.
Next one, favourite horror book.
Lots of favourite horror books, lots of Stephen King books I like. But I think for me, and again, I'm not a big fan of gigantic books. I don't write gigantic books, and I don't like reading them. I just think an 800-page book is just too much.
Can I guess? I think I might know what it is. Is it The Stand?
No.
No? Okay, go on, sorry.
Good guess. It's I Am Legend by Richard Matheson.
Of course.
I love that book. It's 180 pages and it's brilliant. It's not long, but it is there's no dialogue in it because he's on his own. So it's not as short as the pages might suggest, because dialogue will sort of fluff out the book a little bit. But I love it. I love the fact that I don't normally say this because I do love movies, but in this case the book is better than the film, and I like the film.
The film changed because it was vampires in the book, was it not?
Yeah, sort of.
And in the film, it seemed like some kind of weird hybrid.
Yeah, and they shouldn't have used CGI vampires. I mean, all the vampires were skinny bald guys. Are you telling me you can't put a skinny bald guy? Do you know? And you know, you think about The Descent. It was a fantastic horror film. Probably one of the best British horror films. They had skinny, bald, creepy Gollum, like all actors. I don't see why they couldn't have used those. It'd be much better. I'm not saying, you know, maybe when they were all the vampires are running fast, you could have had CGI, but when it's face to face, I'm not a fan of CGI. We don't need it.
And it's another example, kind of like The Exorcist, that the characters, you want to hang out with that character. And the character in I Am Legend, even though he's not really speaking to anyone who's known for him to interact with, you kind of want to hang out with him and see what he does.
Do you mean Will Smith? Or
no, not Will Smith. I'd love to hang out with Will Smith, don't get me wrong, but I mean in the book.
Yes, I love it. I do you know what I love about that book? Right, is that when I was reading it, I read it after the film because I liked the film, but it was just something missing. I felt maybe the book would sort of. I did not know it was written in 1953. I just thought it was written maybe in the 80s or 90s until they started making strange references. Yeah. And I was like, God, is this so? And I looked at the back, and I think it's 1953. It could be wrong, 1954 maybe, but to have written something like that back then. It's so ahead of his time, you know. Genius right there, Richard Matheson.
Absolutely is. You won't tell it was 1953 if you didn't know. Yeah. Your favourite horror moment?
There's loads to think of. There's great ones from The Shining with the lady in the room. I forgot the room number now. But anyway, that's a great scene. I've got to say, it's got to be Salem's Lot, the mini-series.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
I haven't, no.
It's probably one of the greatest mini-series ever. It was made in 1980 maybe, could be wrong, could be 79. But it plays out like a film, and it's got the greatest vampire ever, which my new book, Blue Skin, is a little bit of a homage to that vampire. I say homage, not rip off. And it's got the creepiest vampire ever in it. If you look it up, Kurt Barlow from Kurt, he's got blue skin, yellow eyes. He's the traditional Nosferatu type vampire. Silent, no, you can't reason with it. He's like an animal. He's just a creature. He's not handsome. He's not. He's not manipulative. He's just a beast. But there's a scene in it where the children have gone missing in the neighbourhood, and there's a tap on the window, and the little dead kid is floating by the window with the smoke. They even spoofed it in The Simpsons, the vampire episode. Very iconic. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend.
I'll have to. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a Stephen King fan, so I haven't seen a lot of kind of stuff based on his.
This is probably one of the best.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Favourite horror creator? You're going to say Stephen King, aren't you? Favourite horror creator?
Do you know what? It is probably Stephen King. I like Stephen King a lot. There's a lot of his films that...
What is it about Stephen King then? I feel like I miss every time I read one of his books. I just switch off, and I just feel like I'm missing something. What is it?
His books are a bit long sometimes, a little bit too much over description. My wife loves lots of description. She loves an author to describe the colour of the microwave and how it shines.
Yeah.
I'm like, get on with it. But
I think this comes from loving movies a lot more, isn't it? You don't want a long description on something you don't need a long description on.
Yeah, well, my wife's the first one to read one of my books, and she's the most critical person of all. So I probably don't describe enough. She likes a lot, so I try to meet her in the middle, and I think I probably... But with Stephen King, a lot of his movies, they're hit and miss. And I used to blame him for a bad Stephen King movie. I used to blame him, this is rubbish. And I hadn't read the book, potentially. But he said he hasn't got a lot of control over the films. Like he said, when you write a book and a studio wants to make a movie out of it, it's like sending your children off to college and praying that they don't get knocked up. You don't have a lot of control. You've done your part, and that's it. And I thought, all right, so I give him a little bit. So I started reading more of his books. Not all his books are good. I think sometimes when you're as famous as Stephen King, you're surrounded with a lot of yes people. For example, Cell. I read Cell, and it's a zombie Stephen King book. I don't want to say what happens in the end, but there's something the zombies do that's so ridiculous. If I had written that, I would be trashed, But yes, overall, he's a genius. When it comes to horror, he's one of the most famous horror icons there ever has been, I suppose, isn't it?
Next one, why horror? So why do you love horror? Why do you choose to write horror? Really difficult question, isn't it?
You want me to say that I've had a terrible upbringing? Yeah. The truth is, nothing ever as bad has happened to me. I have a very normal family, no stories. There's something cool about blood and gore. I'm a child of the 80s, so when it comes to films, the 80s was sponsored by blood and guts, wasn't it, pretty much. They weren't probably as scary as they are now, horrors, because I think films in general tend to be more realistic, so they're a bit creepier now. But back in the 80s, I think it was more gore than scary, like Hellraiser, Freddy Krueger. My parents never let me watch horrors. My uncle was the one who would let you sort of watch Freddy Krueger. And I'm not saying I was good for kids, because I got 2 daughters, and I don't let them watch horrors, because my daughter is a bit of a wimp. She went to cry watching Gremlins. Yes, January, Christmas time, and even before the Gremlins turned up, she was crying. So not everyone responds well, but I just loved it. I loved Evil Dead 2. It was my first favourite horror film. Probably a close second after Return of the Living Dead. But it's something about gore and zombies, and the 80s was a sort of birthplace for all that, I think.
Do you think it's possible to recreate what there was in the 80s now? I mean, Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez tried to do it, didn't they, with Planet Terror and Death Proof, and it completely flopped. I mean, do you think it's possible to recreate nowadays, or are we never going to get the 80s back? I
don't know, there's a lot of nostalgia at the moment in movies, the Ready Player One, things like that. But I don't know, I think I was, for example, this has nothing to do with horror, but I was watching Commando the other day, an Arnold Schwarzenegger film, and I loved that film growing up, and I still do. It was on TV the other day, but I was watching it and reviewing it in my head, even though I loved it, and it's a pile of crap, but I love it, and that's the 80s. There's a pile of crap, a lot of the stuff is, not all the stuff, some things are fantastic, but I got a friend who hasn't seen Back to the Future, and he's 39, which doesn't make any sense to me. And I said, well, we need to watch it. But I thought, is it going to get lost on him now? Unless you were a child watching it. And a lot of these horrors, I put Evil Dead 2 on for my wife. She'd never seen it. She said, what is this pile of shit? What is this pile of rubbish? And I said, what do you mean? This is brilliant. But I could see it through her eyes. And maybe it's a bit trashy. The effects aren't good. I think some things you need to be... You need to be there.
What did you think of the Evil Dead remake?
I'm a big fan of it.
I loved it. It was good.
I thought it was not perfect. It struggled for you to know who the lead was. It didn't know who the hero was, which is kind of the appeal. But I think it's quite underrated, very underrated actually. It's very gory.
Yeah.
It's one of the most gory films I've ever seen. I mean, anyone...
Well, it rains blood, doesn't it? You can't get more gory than that.
Well, there's a bit in there where the girl cuts her face off and the man and her boyfriend slips on her face. I mean, that's pretty much up there with some of the best, goriest moments ever, but I like that, yeah.
Coming up in part 2, out in 2 weeks' time.
Things go missing, spoons go missing, lights flickering, hearing the door open and then nobody's coming home, hearing footsteps. I saw a woman sitting on my kitchen chair dressed in like a cream top with a brown tie and a brown skirt and a brown hat. But I kind of like the idea that society had moved on. They're still scared of them, but they're no more than wild animals that, you know, if they're kept away, not going to be a problem.